Good afternoon, everyone. You're all aware that we are getting ready for the big day, the Spiritist Symposium that would happen on May 4th. And I have the pleasure of speaking with my good friend Daniel from California. And we have prepared for Daniel here 10 questions, and we hope that we can cover this in 30 minutes because our friend is an extremely busy individual. And so it is all the true Spiritist workers. So, my friend Daniel, my first question for you is where do you live and how you became involved with the Spiritist movement?
Hi, Julio. It's a pleasure to talk to you guys and to talk to our friends out there in New Jersey. I'm very excited with the possibility of seeing you guys in just a couple of weeks. Where do I live? I live right here. You're looking at it. I'm speaking straight from my front room here today, and I live in sunny San Diego, California. So for me, it will be almost like a opposite corner of the country from you guys out there in New Jersey. So I'm very excited to make my way there. And how did I make my way into the Spiritist movement? Funny enough, I came into the Spiritist movement relatively late. I have always had a chance to read and talk about Spiritism with my parents at home, but I didn't really start going to a Spiritist center until it was probably around like 21 or 22. That's when I decided that I really wanted to talk to other people about it. I have always talked to my parents about it, and I love the dialogue and the conversation about the ideas that we find in the Spiritist body of knowledge. And so when I went to college and no longer had my parents near me, I felt like, hey, I should go find a nice group of people to talk about these important topics with. So that's when I went to my first Spiritist group out there in Los Angeles called Euripides Barçanufo. Very tough name to pronounce in English. But that was a while back. I don't know. I think that maybe it was about 19 years ago, which only shows to prove that I'm getting old. But that's kind of how it happened for me, and I haven't looked back since. And I look forward every week to be able to connect with my friends here at the Spiritist Society of San Diego, at the Allan Kardec Fellowship Society of San Diego, and just be with people and talk about Spiritism.
Interesting. I love your story. And it so it goes with so many of us that we know this information, but due to all the responsibilities, it's only late in life that we actually get involved in the movement itself. So please explain to those who are viewing us for the first time, what is the Spiritist Symposium and how long have you been participating in the Spiritist Symposium?
Well, the Spiritist Symposium is one of my favorite times of the entire year because it's this great event that takes place once a year, and we have a whole day filled with Spiritist opportunities, I want to call it. We have speakers from all over the US who come together to share their knowledge, share their perspective. And for me, what is most enjoyable and exciting about the symposium is that we actually get a chance to not necessarily just listen to the great speakers, but to be with each other, to see each other. Many of us know each other for a while, through different events and different interactions, and the chance to be together and talk is great. I've been part of the symposium for a very long time, since the beginning. I had a pleasure of speaking at the first Spiritist Symposium in Baltimore, and I loved it. I thought it was just a great thing to, again, be with people, and I haven't missed it since. It's one of those things that I make sure that I put it on my calendar because I don't want to miss it.
You remember the year, the Spiritist Symposium back in Baltimore?
I don't remember the year, but if we do some backwards calculation, it must be what today is 19, right? We're gonna have the 13th, so it's got to be like 2006.
All right, very good.
Yeah.
That was precise math right there, Daniel.
Yeah, I was a little bit on the spot here. I'm like, ooh, how's my math doing these days?
I know it's late in the afternoon, simple calculation here. Do you remember which symposium was actually very memorable to you? Something that occurred, a talk that you gave, something about a specific symposium that it just strikes you as very important for you?
It's really hard for me to pinpoint one. I have a lot of them, in my memories, hold them near and dear to my heart. I did like the last symposium as well that we had in Washington, D.C. I thought the venue was a beautiful, airy, clear, light venue. So I think that was very nice. I did enjoy one we had in California back in the day, in San Francisco as well. So it's really hard to say. I feel like it's just a wonderful opportunity for us to not only be exposed to great content and and learn more about Spiritism and different methods and different styles of communicating that content, which I love, but also to connect with the people. So I might be one of those guys that, like, I'm going to give you a non-answer and say I loved all of those, all of them, but I do mean it. So it's hard to pick one, over all of them.
Daniel, we all respect you very much in the movement, not only as a friend, but as a Spiritist worker as well. And we are aware there are many benefits to the Spiritist Symposium, but for you, my friend, with the knowledge that you have about the movement and about this philosophy, what do you think is the greatest benefit of having the symposium?
Very kind words, Julio, but right back at you. It's just a wonderful thing for us to be able to have this, like, bi-coastal relationship, right? You are out there in New Jersey. We never met before a Spiritist event. That's how actually we got to know each other, right? So I think that the greatest, to be honest with you, the greatest value that the symposium brings is exactly this: the opportunity for you to get to know wonderful people that you become friends with for the rest of your life. I am always one that enjoys the ideas and the concepts brought forth by Spiritism, because it helps us understand life in general and pretty much everything around us. So no doubt the method that Kardec brought to us is a great gift for all of us, because it keeps revealing things and teaches us to think for ourselves on how to understand the world around us with a more spiritual perspective. But it is not lost in me that one of the greatest gifts Spiritism and the Spiritist Symposium have given me is the ability to be with people who are also interested in these things, who are also taking the time to do this. So I really do love the speakers, but I really do love those who are not just speaking, but who are just coming and saying hello and telling me, hey, how are you doing? It's been 1 year since I saw you. I now have another kid. There are things that kind of just that happen, and you become part of people's lives. When you and I met, Julie, neither of us had kids. And now we have kids. It's a whole different life, and it's kind of funny in a way that time goes by and you talk to people like we're talking now. We haven't physically spent a lot of time together, but I feel really close to you, and it's just like, great. There's my friend Julia from New Jersey, right? And that would never have been possible if were it not for Spiritism and for Spiritist Symposium as well. So I think there's a community side to this. To learning, to growing, to Spiritism, that sometimes can be lost on us if we just think about, what are the topics of the presentations? I think those are going to be lovely and wonderful, but the ability to interact with folks and get to know people, in their natural habitat, get to see more people from New Jersey, it's always great for me. So that's what I look forward to the most when I go to the symposium.
I second your words, my friend. It's always great to see our friends from all over. Now, for our next question, Allan Kardec established that Spiritism is a science. There are many definitions to science, but one of them, it's a body of knowledge. And any science to progress, to evolve, it depends on collective efforts from different individuals, from different backgrounds, to make it a whole. So this is not so much as a criticism of how things are done, but from your perspective, because you have a PhD in education, and we value that very highly, because that sort of academic achievement helps one to have many different perspectives on different things, especially on the realm of character building. So from your part, my friend, do you have any suggestions on how the symposium is planned, organized, and executed?
That's a long question. I don't know if I have a lot of suggestions about it, other than having us have the opportunity to come together and swap experiences. One of the things that we're trying out this year that's slightly different is, our panel format for questions and answers is changing a little bit. And we're going to try to do this new thing called Spiritist Conversations, which is actually a podcast that we do every so often. And that format is meant to bring people more into an informal way of talking about things and to really interacting with people. And I think that's key to learning, interaction with people and the ability to just converse and talk to them, with them. It's a really great way of learning, right? So I think that an effort is being made at the symposium, which I'm really appreciative of, that to include this style of conversations, which is going to be a great experience for us because we haven't never really done this at a symposium, to really have some people come together and ask questions, but not in that format of like, you've got 2 minutes and you've got 2 minutes and you have your prepared speech. You're like, let's just do a fishbowl. Let's just kind of sit there in front of people and really have a conversation. And it's okay if we don't agree because we have different perspectives, but we all want to hear each other's take and experience because it generally enriches us. So while I am not part of the organizing committee, and group, on the symposium, I think that this year, this effort to try to do that a little bit more dynamic, it might be an interesting experience. So let's see if that works.
I like your comments because I'm a firm believer that one shoe does not fit all. You definitely need flexibility depending on the circumstances where you find yourself in. Thank you for your comments. For this particular year, you're sort of covered on your last answer, but what will be your role and your main topic for this year's symposium?
Yes, this year I think the organizers wisened up and realized they should not give me the mic uninterrupted because I would not let go. So they asked me to host 2 Spiritist conversations, so basically replicate the format of the podcast that we do every so often. And so my role will be to bring some people together and ask them questions. We're going to have 2 different sessions, one I think right after lunch and one before, towards the end. And we're going to ask 2 great questions I think are very meaningful to us, which is the whole purpose of having these conversations. The first one is, why should we change? Should we change ourselves? Do we really have to? We're going to have a conversation about that. And the second one, I think, is a complement of the first one, very pragmatic too, is what can Spiritism do to help us? So we hope to dive in onto the really practical applications of everything that we're talking about the symposium, and to really bring that into the personal realm and share people's experiences and takes. So it's not just a great conference that you go to, you enjoy the content, and then you go back home and you don't necessarily take that with you. So my role this year will be to try to facilitate those conversations and interrupt people if they are talking for too much, or dragging more people into the conversation if they are too shy. So let's see how that works out. So this sort of a talk show feel to it, it's going to be something different, and I'm curious how people are going to receive that.
Well, you begin your answer by saying that the committee decided to remove the mic from your hands, and I'm sort of upset by that because I always enjoy and learn very much from your talks. They're very sensitive and intelligent as well. But I know with this new role of you for this symposium, you'll be equally interested, as you always are, my friend. For the next question, it sort of cover my appreciation for your talks, because I ask here, when you are preparing for a topic, do you have a specific strategy to cover the material? Is there a style of public speaking that you are more comfortable with?
Yes, I think that a couple of things that come into mind when I am thinking about, public speaking or a talk or a presentation. I think first and foremost, I start with the idea of, so what do I find most interesting here? What do I find most important here? And what are the 1 or 2 or 3 things that I would take away from all of this, right? So I start right there, but it always kind of comes in the back of my mind too, of like other people questions about it. Like, what have other people asked me about this topic, or what do they find interesting? Sometimes I will ask people, say, hey, I'm going to talk about this. What do you think is most interesting about that, right? Sometimes my wife is the target of my inquiries here, and I say, hey, what do you think about this? And kind of start the conversation a little bit and see where we're going. I also think that to the extent possible, I do have a lot of fun trying to do this, is try to relate with other things out on the outside world. Because Spiritism can be so deep and so comprehensive that it's very easy for us to kind of just meander in all the, I don't know, thousands of books we have and all this wonderful knowledge. But can we also make a bridge to our everyday life, to something different? And hopefully that provides a little bit of a new, like feel to things, so that people can see that all the things that they've been studying also relate to other things. So I like trying to make connections between things, because it makes me happy. When I see how things connect and how they work, kind of like a light bulb goes on in my mind. So I try to do that, but I do appreciate different styles of talking. Is one of the things I like so much about the symposium, is that because people have different styles, and you learn from that diversity, right? You learn from people bringing different perspectives and delivering it in a way that you never thought you would, right? And I'm like, oh, when I hear you speak, I'm like, oh, great. I would never put it this way. I love that, because I would not have thought about it myself, right? And so I think this is one of the great things of coming together and listening to each other, is we cover different areas and different ways of delivering sometimes even the same topic. And that makes it easier for us to kind of like make connections in our brain and relate to that topic in a way that's really meaningful to us. So I really look forward to listening to the styles that are very different to my own, because I tend to learn quite a bit.
I am very in sync with your answer. It's also something that I always ask myself when preparing a topic, what's the application of this? Because I think as a listener, as a viewer, as someone sitting in the audience, what's the point of learning anything if there is no real application in your life?
Yeah.
So I really like the way you think, my friend. This is why I believe I enjoy your lectures very much. And also it's because it brings a different style. I think it's so rich that each individual presents the same idea in their own unique way, which makes the talks very diverse and interesting for the listeners. The next question, my friend Daniel, it's a question that all of us that are involved in this beautiful philosophy, it's very natural for us to want the most people to know about this information, to know about the vast collection of material that this philosophy can present. We just want to be out there. And it's our job, the Spiritist movement, to do that. And you've been participating since you're 21 years old. What do you think is the greatest challenge of the Spiritist movement?
Oh, these are big, hairy questions. I love those. Maybe that's a
minutes.
conversation in itself, right? I think that, I think that obviously depends on people's perceptions and inklings and likings too, right? I agree with you that, it's incumbent on us to share what we know. At the same time, I don't want to go and say that I am really that concerned by the number of people who come to a Spiritist event or to a Spiritist group, because we know that inner transformation and inner change, which ultimately is our goal, is a really hard thing to do, and people go at different speeds, at different phases. So I think that generally I am more concerned with making sure that we're doing things the best possible way that we can, without necessarily great regard to numbers, right? So because at the end of the day, whether I'm speaking to 50 people or 5,000, it won't make me a better person, right? That does not have an impact on me. Now, having said that, it's obviously, important and great that we do share this wonderful gift, which we think Spiritism is, and this perspective of reevaluating things. So I think that making the material that we have come in contact with available to others is of extreme importance, without shoving it down their throats, because I think people are really fed up with other people trying to guide their thoughts, influence their thoughts, force their thoughts, right? And so a lot of my new projects and efforts these days is trying to figure out how can we make the content that we love so much and the method that we love so much in Spiritism available to other people? How can we find ways of bringing them into contact with this in a way that it's safe and non-threatening and helpful to them, right? So I'm trying to do different projects on that front as time permits, but I think that's one of the greatest challenges we face is, can we bring more people into in contact with this material? Because not a lot of people know it's there. They never really have heard of it unless they come into contact with somebody that has, right? So people don't even know what to look for when they're looking for something because they don't know this thing exists, Spiritism. And so try to figure that out. So I think one of the projects that I'm trying to work on now these days it's called the Spiritist Institute. And it's a nonprofit to try to gain some more understanding into how to give people access to Spiritism. So I know that you've done this, for instance, and it's one of the projects that we're trying to do is how can we get Spiritist books into the hands of people who need it? So you have, I know that, Julio, distributed books in the prison system in New Jersey. We're looking into, can we fundraise and create a logistics system where we put Spiritist books into every public library in the United States, right? So trying to do these kinds of things, I think, are potential ways of letting people know that we're there. But that might be a very long conversation that maybe we'll certainly table here for another day. But paying it forward, I guess, is what we're trying to do. Just pass the light on and the love and the benefits and the blessings that we have received.
My friend Daniel, when we learn how to address our own psychological needs and flaws, one of the things that we learn through the Spiritist literature is that we should speak less of ourselves and more of the philosophy. But I ask you your indulgence just for a minute here because you touch on a very sensitive subject to me, which is you said that if you speak to 50 people or 5,000 people, am I even changing myself? And since you mentioned that I worked in the prison system, for 12 years, I no longer work there. But when I did, every week I did 2 lectures. And the interesting thing was when the officers felt like calling the inmates, I would have a large group, 25, 30 people for the jail system. It's a large group.
Mm-hmm.
But then if the officer was having a bad day, then he would call 2 or 3 of them. In those instances, I had to go through a trial of enthusiasm because, how do you speak to 3 people and get them engaged, involved in the conversation instead of when you have 25 people, which is much easier. For those who are not involved in public speaking, they probably believe that speaking to fewer people, it's easier than speaking to a lot of people. But it's just the opposite. It's way easier to speak to a lot of people than fewer people. But you actually had to, get you more enthusiasm. So it made me question myself, if I did this for the people, or if I was doing just because I enjoyed very much speaking. And in that regard, I love this philosophy very much. And one of my main themes that occupies my mind is what is it that we have to do to spread this knowledge? Just like you said, not that as a speaker, I'm looking to have a crowd of 5,000, but that people have access to this incredible information. You hear this bad news, suicide rates and drug abuse and drug overdose. And here we are, this body of knowledge that makes so much sense. We're not shoveling nobody's throat. It speaks to reason and logic. And what is it that we as a movement can do to help people have more access? And I really like your ideas, and you have my full support in anything you need in order to get the Spiritist Institute going. So 2 last questions here. So ideally, in a perfect world, if you had all the financial resources, time, and power, because you need power as well, what would you do to disseminate the Spiritism here in the US?
Oh, yeah. I think that's kind of a great segue. And I should just say, too, that I totally agree with what you said. I have spoken before to very small crowds, and I'm talking about not even a crowd, because one person is not a crowd. I remember, like, Spiritist group, a couple of times there was just one person who showed up to this new activity that we were doing, and I always found that speaking to one person was like death to me, right? Because, I felt so self-conscious that this person, there's just one person. Like, can I really stand up and speak to that person? I'm going to sit next to that person and talk to that person, because it feels very like preachy, right? Like one person standing up and speaking to just one person on the other. So whenever somebody showed up, I would say, oh, please let the second person show up, because it's less like, so I would prefer to speak to 0 people, which I have also done, and 2 people, than to speak to one person. Funny stories along the way. But you grow up, you learn a lot about yourself, like you said, right? But if I had unlimited resources, I think that I would spend a good amount of money kind of funding these projects that we were talking about. Can we get Spiritist literature available in public places and places of learning, like public libraries and colleges? Libraries and colleges, so that if people decide to search for the information, they can find it, right? While we cannot force people to learn, not that we want to, and because we respect them, we also very cognizant that a lot of people come to us and say, oh my God, I wish I had known or came in contact with this, 20 years ago. I wouldn't, my life would have been maybe a little bit better. So finding and having the ability to leverage these resources to put these books and all these things in different places would be one of the things that I would love to do. That's one of the things that I'm trying to do, and I'll tap you for that for some help with that later as we kind of organize things a little bit more. But that's one of them. I think the other one of them, I would love, if I really have the money, to be able to have some physical buildings, right? I know that they are not important in the grand scheme of things because we really pay attention to the spirit first, but I would love to have comfortable and beautiful places in which people could come and spend time together learning about these things. Because we're a volunteer effort in Spiritism and nobody gets paid for any of the work, and it's oftentimes our second job in terms of love, right? Because we have to make a living, and then when we have time, we get to work on this wonderful thing because we don't want to get carried away and kind of lost along the line by focusing only on that. I wish we could have some beautiful spaces to have these conversations, to have the ability to do this. One of my dreams is in our Spiritist group and center, I would love perhaps to have a very modern coffee shop style foyer or intro place that people could just linger and literally pick up books and talk and have these discussions. So I would probably invest in some buildings too. But I never really thought about that question. Maybe I need to give it a little bit more thought because unlimited resources is very tempting. But at the end of the day, I think that what would be really great too is to make sure that we were organizing a movement that also cared about other people. So that also put in practice that which we learn. So I would also spend a good amount of time trying to get another project off the ground that we've been working on, Spiritist Day of Service, where we get people all Spiritists to volunteer more in their local communities and maybe do that together once a year. So I would maybe spend some time, try to train volunteers and try to subsidize our Spiritist groups to get more out there in the community and try to help others, because there's some beautiful, beautiful work a lot of Spiritists do throughout the country and the world that we don't know about because we're so stuck on all the bad things that are happening out there. And I wish we could shine a light a little bit more on that to energize people and get people going. So, but I'll keep thinking about it. Yeah, but these, I think, are a couple of things that I wish we could do better. I wish I could do better, and they will take resources, but we keep on going.
I listen to so many people and their ideas, and I could hear people already listening to your comment and saying, why in the world would our friend Daniel suggest coffee shops and teas and a place of gathering, and it's not out of pure criticism. It's just the lack of understanding of how important socialization is. I truly believe that, when we are giving ourselves these moments of just pure joy and friendship and socialization, there are so many things that are vital for the movement that come as a consequence of that socialization. And at times we're trying to do things the other way, and it finds much resistance. So that
Yeah.
socialization is vital for any group to accomplish important things, as a whole. I appreciate that.
Yeah, movements are made of people, right? And people need to spend time together, right, to become a movement. And I think that's what these things are meant to do. Like the symposium, it really gives us a chance to spend time together. So I love doing that. I love doing that.
And since you spoke about your wish of having nice buildings, for those who are still in doubt if they should come to the Spiritism Symposium or not, well, please take a look at the picture of of the beautiful venue we have chosen this year. It's at K University. It's a beautiful state-of-the-art auditorium. It would hold 500 people and plus more, some standing. That's what we're planning, and it meets your standards, Daniel, as far as a nice building that provides socialization and the excellent place for speakers to present their material. So, for our final question, one of the hardest things for scientists, for futurists, for anyone that is interested in knowing what's going to happen, it's actually to predict what's going to happen, because everything changes so fast in the world of technology, in the world of politics. So it's very hard to predict. But with the information that you have at hand, Daniel, how do you see our movement, the Spiritist movement, specifically here in the US, within the next 5 years?
Ooh, that's a great question. If I were to crystal ball this one, which is always hard, I would see it continue to grow. I think it grows little by little, and I think it does so by virtue of, again, human interaction, right? Truth is, we don't have large communications campaigns out there to promote Spiritism. So everybody that comes into Spiritism or to our Spiritist centers or groups or societies, depending on how you want to call them, they generally come because they have seen or witnessed somebody behavior or good character, and they were fascinated by the idea that that person might have some answers that could help them. So I think that will continue to to happen and to grow. I think that we're going to continue to have more people coming in little by little, which is very okay by us, because it also allows us to host them better. I think that we are going to have more and more kids coming into our movement. I think that it's probably very clear that a lot of the Spiritist movement in the United States has a very big Brazilian flavor by virtue of the impact of Spiritism in Brazil and Brazilian immigration over time to the United States. I think that's going to start to change a little bit. And I think that as children grow too, we're going to see a different way of doing things and different kinds of activities that we were not, we didn't see before. So I think that we are, in terms of Spiritist movement, going to a second phase in the United States where it's no longer an inception phase, but it's more of a structuring phase, a growing phase, that it will not necessarily reach millions just yet. But it will begin to lead us to even ask ourselves really tough questions of, why do we do things this way? Should we try to do things differently, right? Will our activities change? I think that we're going to have more and more activities in English. It's just a matter of time until when these kids grow up, right? And so I think there are a lot of different things that are going to happen there. The exciting piece about it all is that it's going to be very confusing for a lot of people because it's going to be different than what we did before. So I think that we're going to have people fighting a little bit of change. I think there are going to be people that want to change faster, and it's going to be wonderful opportunities for learning that might make everybody a little uncomfortable at times, but which is a great thing in my book. So I do think that we are going to change slightly. I am very excited though that because Spiritism has such a solid foundation in terms of knowledge and methods and meaning, that we have so much great content to continue to study for hundreds of years. So I do think that, I also think that we are going to continue to go back, and I hope, to the basics, to the foundational works by Allan Kardec to better understand that. And we're also going to start seeing less and less speakers coming from Brazil or South America, and we're going to have more of an interchange of speakers in here or coming from different English-speaking countries as well. So I think that's going to change a little bit. I think the flavor would change a little bit, but I think that the heart and joy of our movement, which is the key to it, will not change. And I think that our devotion to spirituality, to God and to Christ, ultimately our biggest role model, would also not change, not even for a second. So I look forward to that. And I look forward to growing and seeing what is going to come, even though we're not quite sure what it's going to look like. But we know that somebody a lot wiser than us is up there in control of things. And whatever comes, that we will be prepared to deal with it in the best possible way. So I have some ideas and some inklings, but we might have to do this 10 years from now and see if we were right, how off we were, like a New Year's resolution, whether you can revisit every so often. But I remain very optimistic. I remain very optimistic, especially when I see kids and young folks really paying attention to important social matters and being more minded towards spirituality and trying to really find sense in life. I think that the things that you mentioned, the violence, the increase in suicide, are indications that people's needs are not being met. And I think Spiritism is a great way for people to find purpose and meaning and understanding in their lives if they get to spend a little bit of time studying it and participating in it. So I remain positive and optimistic because I believe in God. So I'm going to probably sum up that way.
I really enjoy your comment on this answer because I share most of your point of view. And the only point of view that I'm careful about it, and let me explain to you why I'm careful about the young adults carrying on with this movement, with no doubt that they will help and they will carry the movement. But throughout our history, my friend Daniel, we as people, we as individuals, we have been addicted to transferring our responsibility to other people. So when I hear that children would do the work, I'm careful with that, so I don't sit back and relax and say, well, they're going to do the work, so I don't have to do my part.
I agree. Yeah. So it's a relay race here, right? We're torch bearers right now, and then we're gonna pass it on to people, but we still got to do the running, right?
Yes.
We are quick to transfer responsibility and quick to retain credit, right? This, I think, is like our state of evolution these days. If we do something great, oh no, it's our doing, but if it's not working out, don't worry, your kids are going to figure it out, kind of thing. We do this with the environment, right? We do this with a bunch of different things. But I wholeheartedly get behind that idea. I think that it's incumbent on us to make the change today because, what we learned through Spiritism, it cannot be ignored. Like, we may not be our kids tomorrow, but we might be our grandkids, right? We are going to come back here. So if we really want to be selfish in the best possible way, we do as much work today, right? So we can benefit on the return, right?
Yes.
So there is a place for productive selfishness here from a spiritual perspective, where we all work to do as much as we can now to make it easier on our children, so that it will be then easier for us when eventually we come back and we get repackaged into a new shape somewhere else, right?
Here in the tri-state area, we have the Tri-State Spiritist Federation. And we have true evidence of your prediction, which is the growth of the youth movement. Because for the third year, the kids in our area would have a youth spiritist retreat, and it's for 3 days. And although we are not solely concentrated in numbers in order to measure the quality of our movement, it has grown to the point that this year we're going to have way more teenagers than we expected, which has caused us some financial concerns, but we're still going to pull it off. And it's very interesting because you cannot simply be a teenager and participate. you have to be at the center, involved in the youth activities for the entire year in order for you to deserve to go to this Spiritist retreat. So that's concrete evidence of your prediction, Daniel.
That's great. You know, nothing brings me more joy too than seeing like a teenager, a young person, really starting to kind of learn about spirituality in general, and just asking, you know, other people, you know, questions like why, you know, and you know, and see, and just kind of, and I just love watching the grown-ups squirm because, you know, they've always done things that way, but they never really stop to think about why they've done things that way. And then when the kids ask that, they feel like, oh, I should know this, but it's a kid asking me. So what do I do? So it's a really wonderful generational struggle there that I absolutely love. So I think that the youth and, you know, all the family retreats that you guys put together and you guys do together is a wonderful time to bridge that gap, right? To have people spend time with each other and so that old age or wisdom can learn from like youth and energy and vice versa, right? And youth and energy can also learn from a little bit of wisdom. So fascinating, and I love that. I love that.
I truly appreciate you taking off your very important time there. I know in the West Coast, it's still in the afternoon, while you're here in the East Coast, it's almost time for supper. And thank you so much for taking your time. And my friend, the final words are yours.
Well, thank you. I think all of our times are important. So I appreciate you taking the time and inviting me to chat as well. Always great to talk to you, Julio. I'm really looking forward to the symposium, which again, such a wonderful opportunity for us to live all these things that we talked about, to not only gain some more insight into Spiritist content and learn about different perspectives in the way that we can understand the content via different talks and speakers and conversations in general, but also an opportunity to be together with people. It's also a great opportunity for us to recharge our spiritual batteries, because I know that all of us have busy lives and all of us struggle with a multitude of things and nobody else really knows. But being such a nurturing and accepting environment, such as the one that in Symposium or any other Spiritist event, because at the end of the day, if you're showing up for a Spiritist event, we want you, right? There are no requirements for you to come whatsoever, whether you believe in everything or not, or that's not who we are. That's not what we're about. We're a big tent movement. Everybody fits under our tent. And so it's a really wonderful thing to be part of this event, to have this opportunity to recharge the batteries, to see people and friends that we really care, and make new friends as well, which is always a wonderful thing. So I'm really thrilled about the opportunity, and I want to thank all our volunteers out there, you know, in New Jersey and the tri-state area, because we know putting events is always hard, and you know, you don't always get to enjoy the event, and it takes forever to arrive, and it goes by quick, and all of a sudden it's done, right? But know this, that we, you know, your fellow Spiritist friends from across the country, literally in this case here, you know, we're going to look forward to hopping on a plane. We're going to be excited to be there, to meet different people. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts, and we hope to see you soon. And we hope that anybody that's maybe listening to this may also join this larger Spiritist conversation and come to the symposium, come meet people, come say hello, right? Come introduce yourself and say, hey, I saw this video. I thought about this. I thought you guys were great. I thought you guys sucked. Just come and tell us, right? Come have the conversation and share with us. And we're really appreciative of that. So thank you for everyone who may be listening. And I would really encourage you to take part in this wonderful opportunity in this beautiful venue, like Julio mentioned. I'm even going to be, a little bit worried, because what if I break something when I'm up there? It's so nice, I'm not used to it. Maybe I need to clean my feet in the carpet before I go on stage, because it's just an incredible auditorium. It's a really wonderful opportunity. So I look forward to seeing all of you, and thank you to all of you guys on the ground that make this possible for us. We're counting the days, and we hope to be there soon.
Excellent. We will receive you with open arms, my friend.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you for listening.